Welcome to the Jada is Our Queen podcast, where a black woman, a brown woman, and a white woman who love each other get in the room with a mic. My name is Julia.
And I am Chaz.
And I am Bernadette. So we're here to find pleasure in diversity and to stretch our comfort zones while staying connected at all costs.
The aim is to break down privilege in a way that feels good, and also use our collective privilege to champion and cheerlead inspirational women from across the globe.
Welcome to the inaugural, the virginity breaking episode of Jada is Our Queen. So we wanted to basically introduce people to us, to who we all are, and what we're going to do with this podcast show thing. Over to you guys.
Okay.
Who wants to talk about themselves first?
Well, you know what? I'm feeling better, so. Throwing you under the train.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how could I introduce myself, because at the moment I've been doing that a lot in Spanish, and in a way it has refined what I say about myself. First of all, what I tell people is that I'm a trained scientist. I have a PhD in computer science, specifically in artificial intelligence, and that only tells, in a way, a small part of who I am, but it's important because a lot of the way I see the world and how I absorb information comes from my training in science, even though at the moment I don't do anything that has to do with science. So I'm Mexican. That also tells you a bit of why I move my hands all the time, and the way I speak. I speak with my hands, and with that is a very weird combination, because Mexicans are volatile, are very touchy and communicative, and do a lot of really strange things. But on the other side, I have this science training, and in around 2012. I had a huge depression, suicidal depression, and I basically took myself out of the depression through very weird stuff that had nothing to do with science, and that started my career in the other arts that are not science. And one of them was orgasmic meditation. That was pivotal for my work. And since 2016, I started just broadening all the things that I was using. I was also doing a lot of plant and animal medicine, and since 2016 until now, what I mostly did was a lot of research, and that the scientist part of me now coming to a point where it's used from a very different perspective. If anything, it can be considered gonzo scientist, because I experiment on myself, and that's what I do all the time. I'm constantly running several experiments. This is, I tell people, like, you think it's a joke, but there are many experiments running at the same time, and the bigger experiment runs itself. So I don't worry about the bigger one, but the small ones. And because of that, I have a lot of curiosity that got very stuck when I was doing computer science. I was telling this to a scientist friend of mine yesterday, where to the point I felt there was very little I could contribute, because the ideas will come so sparsely and like a drop and then like several days of void of not getting anything. And the way I am right now, I'm presented with something, and it takes me almost no effort and no time to see openings and possibilities of research and things that need to be investigated and things I already know, and I'm like, this is not going to work. And it's for me, this is precisely. As a child, I used to dream I was going to be a scientist, but, in the old-fashioned way, with your lab and very masculine. And now I'm a scientist, but in a more erotic or feminine way, where the intellect is at the service of the body and the spirit. So that's
nice.
Thank you, Detta.
So can I ask you something? How do you serve people then? What do you actually do? Like, how can people get in touch with you if they wanted to work with you?
they can message me. Like, I have a Facebook page, I have Instagram, what else? My page, I rebranded my entire website recently. It's called Bernadette.work. And my email is doctor@Bernadette.work. Because I wanted to make, for me, it was so, in a way, irrelevant, the fact that I had a PhD, because it doesn't, for me, it really means not that, I'm better because I have a PhD. But a few people pointed out, you never actually use it. And I was like, I think it's a thing because I don't use it in that realm. I am like, but I'm no longer a computer scientist. I said, I'm just going to bring it. And this is, every time I say that my email is doctor@Bernadette.work, I cringe, because there is a lot of like, but I'm not really a doctor, it's like the imposter syndrome. So that's one way to connect with me. And the way I serve people is, most of my things are about two things. It's practice, developing and creating, crafting a practice from the ground, from the bottom, like when you have nothing. And the bigger one is ego death. I call it ego death because most people, if I said ego dissolution, they don't quite get it. I said, once you're initiated, it's easier to say ego dissolution. But that's my entire thing. Like, I just see people going through phases and guiding them through the deaths that they're going to happen again and again. It's a never-ending process until they're physically dead. But through that is just the accumulation of and harnessing of power. So I teach people how to do that. And basically I use practice and I use everything I have at hand. I'm very, very quick at absorbing information and then adjusting to what people need, whether you like it or not. And it's easier once you have context to guide you through the process, rather than wait for, you to have a car crash or something that you cannot really, avoid it anymore.
Beautiful. Very deep, hey? Amazing stuff.
Thank you.
Shall I go next?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. So, God, how do I follow that? So I have 2 degrees. They're both BAs. I'm a super creative person. When I was at school, I got banned from entering competitions, and I got banned from entering storytelling competitions. In quote unquote, to give other people a chance to win.
Oh my God.
And so,
that's pretty shocking. Just want to say that is pretty shocking.
Well, it's kind of the beginning of what's brought me here.
You're right.
I remember that famous Stanford speech that Steve Jobs made about joining up the dots afterwards. And, I can feel very injured, very hurt at the time. But actually, if I step back and have the patience, I see where that has served me. And so, yes, I mean, that and other incidents like that have been kind of my lifeblood. I think when I met Detta slightly before you, Julia, and I think when I met Detta, I was a real victim who loved to complain about everything. And, that has been killed to a certain extent by what I've learned since. I've had a lot of teachers. I've been in the orgasmic meditation community also. And I learned a lot about what I expected of myself as a woman, conditioning wise, what I learned about myself as a sexy woman, conditioning wise, and spent probably about the last 6 or 7 years trying to unpick that, until recently when I just thought, I don't need to actually unpick it. What I need to do is work with it. For my advantage. And so that's what I'm in the middle of doing now. How that's manifesting is that I've started to not work on so many different projects at a time. I'm also quite quick at absorbing information. I can get bored really easily. I can jump from one shiny object to another. And I've found a way through practices, actually, to kind of just start focusing on the one thing, and I just went back. I wondered why God was sending me back to all the places to live that I'd lived as a child, or I'd been a young adult in. You know, I've accidentally ended up back in places that I ran away from when I was 16 and 17. Mm-hmm. And I'm now starting to see that I'm just going back to a point where I went off piste in a way, so that I could learn some lessons. And now I'm back at that point, and from there on I can go. Look, I'm indicating it like it's a straight road, but I'm fully expecting it to be a road like this. That's the nature of it. But, you know, I just want to say the difference between going from that point blind and going from that point with knowledge and with practice, if that makes sense. So one last not so little thing that I want to say is that I'm Black, as you can see. I'm well read. I'm pretty well spoken. I'm quite well educated. My family were not poor. And there's a certain expectation of people with my skin color, which is enraging to me. And I really want to talk about that in these sessions, and how it's affecting me and how it affects my relationships with other people of any color and of any caste, of any creed. So that will be an interesting one to explore, I think, as we do these sessions. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Totally amazing. I loved all of that. Thanks, Chaz. Right. So my name is Julia, and I guess I'm a sex witch. That's it. That's pretty much what I am and what I do. What that means, I suppose, is that I am interested in using pleasure to reclaim my body and to heal my nervous system, because I have, like a lot of people, I mean, you know, Chaz talking about not being able to even enter the freaking competition. Yeah, it's like we've all had a kind of series of compounded traumas, right? One on top of the other. And this has made me a specialist in fear. I think that's what I have brought to this life. You know, it's like I suffered from anxiety from probably about age 19, when I actually just cracked with it. You know, like my life started to not be doable anymore through fear. And I'm 50 now, and I feel like embodiment practices are the way in which I can begin to heal those wounds. You know, maybe I started on that journey probably 5 or 6 years ago when I first met you guys, also through the Orgasmic Meditation Workshop. And I had a really profound experience at that first circle, because I remember just feeling like I'd found it again. And that wasn't necessarily Om or the community of Om so much as the power of pleasure, you know, in my own body, and the power of pleasure to heal, and the power of pleasure to, basically reclaim my power, you know. So, yeah, I hung around in those circles for a while, and I also went and studied other places. So I went and studied Tantra. I've studied with, I feel I've studied with all the great female teachers, you know, Nicole, Mama Gina, Kasha, you know, Carolyn, Layla Martin, all the people who've popped up in my field as like amazing teachers of feminine power, ultimately. Yeah, so that's been the most enormous privilege. And privilege is an interesting word, because, you know, I feel like it's something that we'll explore in this container. The nuances of privilege, certainly, you know, within different racial experiences, but also the privilege of us as three women who came to the power of orgasm and pleasure. I mean, it's like an amazing privilege that, the three of us ended up there too. So sex witch kind of means to me, what the fuck does that even mean? It just means that I'm aligned to some tradition in some way that I don't even know what it is. It's not like I could say I'm a Buddhist, It's like, it's basically the use of pleasure and embodiment in order to heal. That's what it is, and reclaim power. That's who I am. That's what I do. That's what I help others do. I tend to work with couples and women primarily. Women tends to be in group coaching programs, which I absolutely love, group coaching. And couples is like this really freaking intense container, It's hard to even explain it, but when I work with a couple, it's normally for 6 months, and sometimes I'm even dreaming. It's like I feel like I enter their field very strongly, and there's some real depth about that I love, and also I can be very gentle, but I also have a sword, right? And I really like to use it. And with couples, it comes in very handy because, I've been in a 20-year marriage myself, so I know this bullshit from, in the inside out. But there's so much bullshit, so a sword is a great thing in couples relationship coaching sometimes, because it just, brings everyone to the earth, obviously I'm a white British woman, grew up I'm connected to the West Country in the UK, and I also spent a lot of time in Surrey, which is where Chaz and I kind of, although we obviously have very different experiences growing up, there's some real connections there in terms of just, we're both Surrey girls, It's like we kind of, there's some common ground there, which has always been really enjoyable. And I think that's probably all I need to say about me.
Cool.